Officer Gator, I believe before we took a break, I was asking um, if Mr. Jason Baker and Letitia Youngblood resided together at the 7242 Georges Way in Morrow, Georgia.
Yeah, she survived that they lived together at the home.
And do you know how old the child is that they shared together?
I do not recall. It was a toddler, I believe.
Okay. Were you able to, when you were there, were you able to, did you see the toddler?
Yes, he was there. He was crying.
Okay. And we say a toddler was the child old enough to walk around and speak?
Yes.
Okay. When you spoke to Miss Youngblood, when she said, I believe you testified that she had started to pack up Mr. Baker's belongings.
That's correct.
Okay, when she started to pack up his belongings, what happened, or what did Mr. Baker do at that point?
She said that he attacked her.
Did she say specifically what he did? What
She,
she means by attack?
she told me that she was struck several times in the head and the face, and he had hit her with his fist.
Were you able to see any bruises or injuries to Miss Youngblood?
The only visible injuries I saw, she had like a rising on the side of her head, and she had scratches on her neck.
Did you take pictures at this time?
I do not recall.
Did Miss Youngblood state whether or not her child was present when Mr. Baker struck her?
Yeah, she said he was.
So the child is a male.
I believe so. I don't recall.
Okay. After she was struck by Mr. Baker, what did Miss Youngblood tell you she was able to do?
I believe she said she was attempting to call the police then.
Was she able to call the police?
She did.
Was she still in the home when she did this, or did she leave the house?
I think she might have gone outside to call, but she was still at the home. She never left the residence.
Okay. So when you arrived there, she was there.
Yes.
Was the child still there as well?
The child was still there as well.
Was Mr. Baker there?
No.
Now, going back to the vehicle, you testified that Mr. Baker took the keys to a vehicle and left.
Yeah.
Now, did Miss Youngblood, was Miss Youngblood the owner of the vehicle, or was it someone else?
It was her brother's vehicle.
Did did she indicate whether or not her brother had given Mr. Baker permission to take the car?
Well, I spoke to her brother myself. I was able to speak with him over the phone, and he indicated that he did not give permission to Mr. Baker.
Okay. Did the brother also reside at that residence?
Yes.
Was he there when you got there?
No, he was not on scene.
But you were able to communicate with him via phone?
That's correct.
Was Ms. Youngblood certain that Mr. Baker was the one who took the vehicle?
She was. They were the only two in the house aside from the child at the time.
Okay. Did Ms. Youngblood and her brother give written statements?
She did. I cannot recall if he did.
Do you recall whether her written statement she gave the same information that she provided to you verbally?
That's correct.
You took out a warrant also for criminal damage in the second degree. What was the item that was damaged?
I do not recall. I would have to pull up that report. Give me 1 second.
Oh, I apologize. I believe that, I'm not sure if you were there. It looks like there was a different officer there. I'm not sure if you were if you were there the same, for the same.
I see that as well. I see it as well, Counselor.
Yes.
And that happened, that looks like that happened
Yeah,
April 28th.
I was gonna say I don't think that was mine.
Okay, and I think that officer I have was good also, so I'll check with that officer. Okay.
Okay.
Did these incidents occur in Clayton County?
Yes, it did.
Now, anytime, have you been able to speak with Mr. Baker?
I never did.
Okay.
I attempted to call the phone number that she gave me for him at the time, but he didn't answer.
Okay. All right, I believe that's all I have. Thank you.
Cross.
Yes. Okay. So the alleged incident occurred on February 25th, 2019. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you arrived there and, you know, Mr. Baker was not present at the scene.
That's correct.
And when you spoke with Miss Natisha Youngblood, she told you that she had been attacked.
Correct. That they had been in some type of a physical altercation.
Okay. And you saw did Miss Youngblood appear injured?
You can tell that she had been in some type of a physical altercation. She was still up and walking and moving it. She wasn't like battered or in dire need of medical assistance, but you can tell she had been in an altercation and she did have visible injuries.
Okay, and what were those visible injuries?
I'm sorry?
What were those visible injuries again?
I just remember her having like a knot on the side of her head, and then she had scratches on her neck.
Okay, and you don't recall there being pictures taken of those injuries?
I do not recall.
And she was never, or I should ask, was she given medical attention or transported to a hospital?
Not by us, no.
Okay.
I think your witness may need to pull up his report, the warrants at least. There's some information on the warrants, and I know, again, I'm all too aware that this format doesn't allow for officers to look at the police reports if they're not in front of them, but there's a little bit more information on the warrant that may need to go on the record.
Right. Officer Gator, are you somewhere where you can get email at this point, or?
I have the report. I'm looking at it now. I see
Okay.
her lips were, both her top and her bottom lip was busted as well.
Okay, and upon this recollection, again, I would ask, or re-ask, there were no pictures taken of her lips?
I don't recall. I don't have that information.
Okay. Now, regarding the vehicle, do you know if it was ever recovered?
I do not know.
Have you spoken with the victim's brother since the initial investigation?
No, I did not.
Have you spoken with the victim since the initial investigation?
No, I have not.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
All right. Anything else from you?
Briefly, Your Honor, Officer Baker, Gator, I apologize. And just to make sure, because I can't recall if I asked you this or not, what kind of vehicle was this that was taken?
It was a 2017 Nissan Rogue.
And were you able to get an estimate of the value of the vehicle?
Let's see if I have one here. $23,000.
I believe that's all I have, Your Honor.
All right. Anything else from your attorney, Rhodes?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
And Your Honor, the other officer should be logging in.
Okay. All right.
And may Officer Gator be excused?
Yes. Thank you, Officer Gator.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. You too. I don't see that person yet. I'll be watching.
All right. I just got a text from Investigator Ponder. She said he should be logging in.
Okay. Nope.
Still checking. Waiting. Your Honor, Investigator Ponder said it was a little mixed up. She said the officer on Gleaton is logging on. She was still trying to reach get the other officer on Baker to log in. So she's doing that now.
And those are like Officer Sterling, C. Sterling?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Victor Brown, Officer Victor Brown, looks like that's the officer on Corey Baker,
Right, that's on Corey Baker.
not Jason Baker.
Right, I'm still. And Your Honor, she's calling now. And Officer Brown, I know you're on Corey Baker. We still have a little ways to go. We're still doing a hearing for Jason Baker. And so I don't want you to go too far, but we still have a little bit to go before we get to your hearing.
Okay.
Okay, are you on duty right now?
No, I got off this morning.
Okay,
Uh-oh.
I guess can he log, would it be safe to say he can log off and come back maybe in 30 minutes, maybe?
Hold on a second.
Okay.
So you worked overnight?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna, he's on Corey Baker. That's
And he's on Corey Baker. Mhm, that's what Mr.
let's just let him go ahead right now. Let's just switch up a little bit because I don't want that. I don't like keeping people up.
Okay.
Good. I don't like that.
Could I have a copy of my just my case number real quick?
Your case number is
Yes, ma'am.
2002 0754.
0754.
Yes.
Okay. We need Corey Baker if we could. Let's just, 'cause instead of just waiting for the, I mean, I apologize, Attorney Rhodes. We'll be starting a whole new case anyway, so it's not, we took you off the middle. Okay? Everybody's tired right now. Corey Baker.
And Sergeant Baker will be with you shortly. We have, we're gonna do this hearing, and so you can mute yourself, and we'll get to yours in a second.
Okay.
And sir, what is your name?
Corey Baker.
Okay, good. Let me swear you in, Officer Brown. You can't see my hand, but it is in the air.
Yes, ma'am.
From the information you give, any testimony you provide in the matter of the state versus Corey Baker is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So you got it.
I do.
All right.
Officer Brown, would you tell us your name and how you're employed, please?
Officer Victor Brown. I'm employed with Clayton County Police Department.
How long have you been with the Clayton County Police Department?
A little over a year now.
Were you working on April 29th of 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
And on that date, let's see, did you have occasion to respond to 6358 Old Dixie Road in reference to a domestic disturbance?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. Now, that particular day, who did you meet with when you got to that location?
That particular day, I was backup for two other officers who responded first, and I came into contact with Mr. Baker.
Okay. Now, you ended up taking out, charging Mr. Baker for BGCSA and crossing the guard line. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
And so, incident that occurred at that location, you didn't charge him for anything regarding that. Is that correct?
That is correct. Just the wanted person located.
Okay. So so how did Mr. Corey Baker get into your custody?
Mr. Baker, another officer had ran him through GCIC, and at that which point they came back and advised that he was wanted out of the U.S. Marshals for a violation of parole.
Okay. And after you learned that, then what did you do?
At that point, Mr. Baker was then taken into custody, and while we verified the actual warrant with his social, and GCIC came back and verified it was him.
Was Mr. Baker brought to the Clayton County Jail?
He was.
Now, when he got to the Clayton County Jail, were you alerted as to any substances that Mr. Baker had on his person?
I was alerted once he was turned over after I left. I was called back to the jail.
When you were called back to the jail, what did you learn that happened?
I learned, I was advised that he had a small plastic bag containing a white substance drop right by his feet. And I was told by the staff that they observed it coming from Mr. Baker.
Was this on camera?
Yes, ma'am, it was. That's what they told me.
Okay. And were the officers there able to see on camera the bag fall from Mr. Baker?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if Mr. Baker made any statements regarding this bag that fell by him?
Yes, ma'am. The staff told me that when they asked him about it, he said that he didn't have anything to say. He was going to prison anyways.
Were you able to retrieve the bag that fell next to his leg?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you able to determine what was in that bag?
No, ma'am. Due to it being a white powdery substance, I had to submit it to GBI testing.
Did you field test it at that time?
No, ma'am, I did not have a field test kit on me.
Now, he was charged with possession of cocaine. Why did you believe that it was cocaine?
Based on the information that was given to me from other officers at the jail and the white powdery substance, based on knowledge training, believing it to be cocaine.
So in addition to your training and experience, the officers at the jail indicated they believed it to be cocaine?
Yes, ma'am.
And since you have been with the Clayton County Police Department, about how many arrests would you say that you conducted regarding the possession of cocaine?
At least 3.
And during your training to be an officer with the Clayton County Police Department, did you have to, or were you trained in identification of narcotics, Officer Brown?
Yes, ma'am.
That training did include being able to identify cocaine?
Yes, ma'am.
Was this one bag that fell, or 2 bags? What was
it? Was one bag, ma'am.
And to your knowledge, was Mr. Baker given permission by anyone to bring that into the jail?
No, ma'am.
Did this happen in Clayton County?
It did.
I have no further questions.
Ross? You're muted.
Good afternoon, Officer Brown.
Good afternoon.
So when you were called to the home and you placed Mr. Baker under arrest, did you search him before you put him in cuffs?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And once he was in cuffs, did you search him again? Oh, I did that backwards, sorry. Did
Once
you
he
search him before he was in cuffs?
No, ma'am.
Okay, you searched him after he was in cuffs?
Yes, ma'am. Prior to getting into my vehicle.
Okay. Did you search his pants pockets?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did he have a shirt or jacket that had pockets?
No, he just had on a t-shirt.
And did you do like a pat down when you searched his pants?
Yes, I pat down his waist, I pat down his pants, reached into his pockets.
Did you search the groin area?
I did not go inside his groin, no.
So you left the building after you dropped him off at the intake at the jail?
That is correct, yes, ma'am.
And how long were you gone before they called you back? The jail called you back?
I don't recall an exact number, but it wasn't long at all. It was maybe 10 minutes.
Okay. And when he got to the jail, he went through intake?
He was, yes, well, I don't know what the process was after I left. Due to it not being any type of drug charge, it was simply a wanted person located. So at that point, they don't get dressed out. So at that point, they just sent them through the metal detector, and I was told I was able to leave.
Do you know if they searched him after you left?
I do
Or
not.
is that not the process? Oh, you don't, okay. When you dropped him off, I'm sorry. Did you actually watch the camera? With
No, ma'am.
him? You didn't see it?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So do you have personal knowledge whether there are other inmates near Mr. Baker?
I do not have, no, ma'am, I do not.
So this is based off of what the jail told you?
Yes, ma'am.
I have no further questions.
Okay, Attorney, do you have any redirect?
No additional questions, Your Honor.
All right. Any other witness?
No, the state rests.
Okay, argument?
State waives opening.
I should ask, Attorney D. Williams, do you have any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, argument?
The state waives opening.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if I could go. I thought I had to wait. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask that the court not find probable cause for both charges of VGCSA and crossing the guidelines. The officer testified that he did search the client. He didn't find anything at that time. He wasn't there when the alleged bag of cocaine was found near my client's leg. It was on videotape. He doesn't know the process. We don't know if there were other people that were next to my client when the bag of cocaine was found. The officer stated he's only been on 3 arrests to identify cocaine. So based on his training, we're not sure if it was even cocaine or not. And I'm just gonna ask that the court not find probable cause because the state hasn't met their burden to charge my client with VGCSA and crossing the guard line.
Your Honor, the state will argue that based on Officer Brown's testimony, we believe there is sufficient probable cause to bind both charges over. Officer Brown indicated that he did search Mr. Baker. However, he did not search his groin area. And given the information to Officer Brown by the jail personnel that they saw the bag fall from his pants, they saw it on the camera. They indicated that to Officer Brown, who then came and retrieved the item. Officer Brown did indicate through his training that he was trained in identification of cocaine, as well as having at least 3 arrests involving cocaine. So this time the state is asking that both charges be bound over to Superior Court.
So. I don't know. I don't know about this. I'm just my notes. One second. You know this, that an officer can receive information from another officer that would give them the basis of their, almost like a report, that they got a report from another officer. Hmm. I'm gonna find probable cause for this.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, I thought I saw Sterling come in.
Yes, yes, Sterling is in.
All right.
Thank you,
Officer
Officer Brown.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sterling, are you able to turn your video on? Sterling, can you hear me? Oh, there he is.
There we go.
And I guess they're bringing the defendant back up.
Right. Let me go ahead and swear you in, Officer Sterling. You swear from the information you give any testimony provided in the matter of the state versus Jason Baker is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God,
I do.
right?
Also, would you please tell us your name and how you're employed?
Officer Christian Sterling, patrol for Clayton County Police.
Officer, how long have you been working with the Clayton County Police Department?
2 years.
Were you working on April 28th of 2020?
I was.
And on that particular day, did you respond, or did you take a report from a Natasha Youngblood?
Yes.
Do you recall what location you met with Ms. Youngblood?
I originally met with her at the Quick Trip on Battle Creek in Jonesboro.
And what did Ms. Youngblood tell you that happened?
She said earlier that morning at approximately 10:30 a.m. that her boyfriend, Jason Baker, had seen text messages on her phone from another guy. So they got into a verbal argument. He picked up her phone, walked out the back of the house.
Wait, you were breaking up in that last part. You said that he picked up her phone and did what?
He walked out the back of their house and then smashed the phone in the road.
Did Ms. Youngblood indicate what type of phone this was?
Yeah, it was a iPhone XS.
Were you able to get an estimate for the value of the phone?
It was valued, she said, above $500.
When you met with Ms. Youngblood at the Quick Trip, did she have this phone with her?
She did not.
At any time, were you able to observe the damaged phone?
Yes.
And did the phone appear to you to be damaged?
It was
Wait, I didn't hear the last part.
It was completely destroyed. It was smashed.
Did Ms. Youngblood indicate whether or not she had given Mr. Baker permission to smash her phone?
She stated she did not.
Did this happen in Clayton County?
Yes, ma'am.
At the time, Ms. Youngblood said that she and Mr. Baker resided together?
Correct.
Okay. I believe that's all I have. Thank you.
Kraus?
Yes, Officer Steerley, after you met with Ms. Youngblood at the Quick Trip, did she escort you to where the phone was?
She did.
Okay. And where did she escort you to? Where was the phone?
We went back to the original incident location at 7242 George's Way.
Okay. And where was the phone lying specifically? Was it on the road, on grass?
She had already picked it back up and put it back in the kitchen counter.
Okay. So you went inside her home?
Correct.
Okay. During this incident or investigation, did you ever see Mr. Baker? Officer, I didn't hear you.
I did.
You did? Where did you encounter Mr. Baker?
He tried running away from us. As we pulled up, he ran out the back of the garage.
Okay. Can you describe again how the phone came, or how the phone was smashed? What was done to the phone?
According to her statement, he took the phone off the bed. He went out in the over where the carport is, where the garages are on the private drive, and smashed it on the ground by throwing it.
Okay. Do you know if anybody was a witness to that act?
No.
And so by the time you had arrived at the home, the phone had moved from the concrete outside to the kitchen counter.
Correct.
Okay. Were any pictures taken of the phone, or was the phone? Well, I'll stop there. Were any pictures taken of the phone?
Yes.
Okay. And was the phone itself submitted to evidence?
No, it wasn't. She kept the phone.
Okay. Yeah. Now, did the phone look operational at all when you inspected it?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
All right, any redirect from you at 88 Freeman?
No, you're under the state rest.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna do, let's see. How do you want to do your argument? You want to start with the first 3 charges and then do the last one, or how do y'all want to do?
Well, Your Honor, can Officer Steerley be excused?
Yes, yes, thank you,
Thank
Officer
you.
Sterling.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, Attorney Rhodes, let's just start with the one that I heard first. Start with that one.
Of course. Your Honor, as you're aware, this case is from 2019, February 25th, 2019. And the charges are theft by taking family violence, battery, and cruelty to children. We ask that the family violence, battery, and cruelty to children charges be dismissed. And the reason we ask for that is because there's no tangible evidence that there was any battery to have occurred. Again, this is back in 2019, and even if there was a injury on the victim, of maybe a bleeding lip, it's been over a year. That lip is very much healed by now, I would very much assume. So I don't believe that the state will be able to meet its burden in showing that there was any actual violence that had occurred. There were no pictures taken. There was no medical attention that was given. And by extension, because there's no evidence of violence that had occurred, there would be also no evidence of a child being subjected to any violence. So for those reasons, we ask for those charges to be dismissed. We submit on the testimony for the theft by taking charge. Now with the criminal damage from 2020, we ask for that charge to be dismissed as well. We only have testimony of, really just what Miss Youngblood says. There's nothing to corroborate it at all. No way at all to see the act of the phone being smashed. For all we know, this is really just a vindictive kind of lover's quarrel or something like that, where the Miss Youngblood may have just wanted to, knowing that Mr. Baker had a warrant out for his arrest from back in 2019, wanted to get Mr. Baker into trouble, for example, but we just don't know. But we have no corroborating evidence to show that Mr. Baker is indeed the one that caused damage to that phone. It could have been Miss Youngblood herself. And yeah, for those reasons, we ask for that charge to be dismissed as well.
Okay. Attorney Freeman?
Thank you, Your Honor. We're asking for all charges to be bound over for probable cause. The older charges, Your Honor, the battery, the officer testified that he saw the injuries. We don't have to have photos just to prove that there was an injury. The officer did testify to what he saw, and also to what Ms. Youngblood told him that had occurred between she and Mr. Baker. So we are certainly asking that those charges be bound over, and as well as because the child was present. The criminal damage in the second degree, again, we have Ms. Youngblood who made statements to the officer that Mr. Baker smashed her phone. When he saw the phone, it had been completely destroyed. He testified for the estimate that it was certainly over $500. So we're asking that all charges be bound over.
And they're going to be, all charges being bound over. Right. All right, let's go ahead and start. I don't know if Attorney Hubbard is there, has been there all this time. Let's go ahead and start. Okay.
Oh, Your Honor, one last case on Mayo. Did Your Honor decide to continue that case? Because I think that's the last case that Mr. Rhodes has.
Let me look at that.
Okay.
What the charges are.
It's an aggravated assault. Is the ag assault, battery, family violence, cruelty to children in the third degree, and an obstruction.
So how many times has this case been on our calendar?
I was showing that this was the first one. I could be mistaken. I don't have any anything else that shows that we had it before.
Have you had contact with the victim?
Let me see. It looks like we've made several attempts using the language line operator. Our victim is Spanish speaking, and it looks like the phone was answered. A person was speaking in the background, but they would not respond to the victim's name. So we're not sure if that's her number or not. And so outside of that, we have not had any contact with the victim.
Let me give you a chance to locate your witness. I'm gonna go ahead and continue this case.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And that concludes the business of the Public Defender's Office. May we be excused?
Yes, thank you. Long day today. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, so let's continue Mayo until, let's see, Ms. Lee, get you back in here. I know.
Yes, ma'am. Do you want to do 2 weeks?
How much time do you both want to give on this?
I would ask for at least 2 weeks. I see that there is a detective who's on the case. And so hopefully we'll be able to get someone else who could testify. Or actually, you know what? This case was attached to a different Mayo. So I'm not sure if there is a detective assigned to the case. But 2 weeks should be sufficient. And we can.
Does June 23rd look like the best date I'm looking at? Ms. Lee, is that a good date?
That's on Tuesday, so I don't know how many cases we'll have to carry over onto that day.
No.
I would say probably either the 16th or the 23rd should be fine right now.
And that's a Tuesday as well.
Right.
What's the first Monday or Wednesday that looks good?
Let me see. It doesn't look like for the 15th or the 22nd. Both of those look like they're going to be pretty heavy. I can't give exact counts because I have to go through and see who's made bond, but they're probably each at least 20 cases.
And today's calendar was only 16
right
here. So this speaks to my whole argument that we cannot put more than, we got to cut it off. We really need to cut it off at about 16, 17. We're already at 20. This is going to have to go a little further beyond.
I would say we could try and aim for one of the Tuesday dates because that's where we put all the leftover cases.
Yeah, but remember Tuesday, we can only go to 1 o'clock on the felonies, on anything. How many do we have on the next couple of the next few Tuesdays?
We haven't put anything on them yet.
Okay, great.
Other than continuances.
Okay, great, perfect. Let's do that then.
Which date again?
So about 2 weeks would be the 16th.
Let's put it on the 16th.
Okay.
And again, we're starting that calendar. What time did I say? Did I say 9:30?
9:30.
9:30.
Do you mind if we take just 1 minute to communicate to the client that his case is continued?
Listen, I've had Attorney Hubbard standing by here since this morning.
It's really just to say this one sentence, and we don't even need a breakout room.
All right, that's fine. Bring Mr. Mayo up, please.
And that's the June 16th, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a Tuesday.
Okay.
I apologize, Your Honor. I thought it would be quicker than this.
I know. I think we all thought it would be.
I'll tell you what, I can schedule a time to just speak with him tomorrow. And
I
just,
mean, where is he?
He's coming through the door now.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayo.
Señor Mayo?
Due to circumstances outside of my control, your case will be continued to June 16th.
Debido a las circunstancias que están fuera de mi control, su caso va a ser aplazado para el día 16 de junio.
I will schedule a time to speak with you tomorrow or Friday to discuss in more details what's going on here.
I'm sorry, Attorney Rhodes, I could not hear
I
you.
will schedule a time with you, either tomorrow or Friday to talk about what's going on here.
Ok, yo voy a programar una reunión o una junta con usted, ya sea el día de mañana o el viernes, para decirle lo que está ocurriendo.
Está bien. Great.
That's fine. Ok, muchas gracias.
Okay. All right. So let's bring up our last client, our last case for today. Gleaton, Mr. Gleaton. Justin Wheaton? Okay. Is your name Justin Gleaton?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very, very good. All right, let me go ahead, and the witness is Sergeant Baker. Do you want to swear yourself? I'm swearing you in. You can't see my hand. Sergeant Baker,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm swearing you in.
Okay.
Do you swear affirm the information you give, any testimony you provide in the matter of the state versus Justin Gleaton is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you.
Sergeant Baker, tell us your name and how you're employed. Hello, Sergeant Baker.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, the signal is kind of bad. It's going in and out.
Oh, no.
Excuse me, Judge. Your Honor, to the extent that I can invoke the rule of sequestration, I'm not sure how we can actually apply it, but I think this is the state's only witness, but to the extent
Yes,
I can
it is.
invoke the rule. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sergeant, tell us your name and how you're employed.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Sergeant Baker with the Clayton County Police Department.
How long have you been with the Clayton County Police Department?
Hello.
Were you breaking up? How long have you been with the Clayton County Police Department?
Uh-oh, no, sir. Oh, So, okay. Sergeant Baker, are you able to go somewhere else? Are you able to go somewhere else?
Hello?
Yes, okay, let's try that. Let's try that.
Okay. Sergeant Baker, how long have you been with the Clayton County Police Department?
It will be 4 years this month.
And as an employee with the Clayton County Police Department, did you have occasion to investigate a case involving an aggravated sexual battery and a child molestation involving a juvenile last name Stevens?
Yes, ma'am.
And was her date of birth 12/15/2012?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, were these for incidents that occurred around January 1st of 2020?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch you.
Did these incidents occur around January 1st of 2020?
Yes.
Do you have a location where these incidents occurred?
Yes, ma'am. It occurred at 8065 Augusta Court, Jonesboro, Georgia 30236.
And is that in Clayton County?
Yes, ma'am.
How did this incident, how was it reported?
By the mother of the juvenile victim, Serenity.
And what is the mother's name, if you can recall?
LaQuashina Stevens.
And did Ms. Stevens come into the police department? Did she call you all out to the home? How did she report it?
She reported it with the uniform officers, and it was assigned to detectives on a later date.
What did Ms. Stevens indicate that happened involving her daughter?
She advised that while she was giving her daughter a bath and she attempted to clean her vaginal area, that Serenity advised her that it hurt. She advised that once she asked Serenity what happened or why is it hurting, then that's when Serenity disclosed that her father, Justin Gleaton, touched her in that area.
Just so we're clear, the defendant here, Justin Gleaton, is the father to the juvenile, Ms. Stevens?
Correct.
Was the juvenile taken anywhere to get an interview or forensic done?
Yes, she was. On a later date, We did have her respond to the Rainbow House in Clayton County in reference to the forensic interview.
And what was learned from that forensic interview?
In the forensic interview, Serenity disclosed that her father, Justin, had touched her inappropriately. She advised that it occurred approximately 2 times. She disclosed that one time her father touched the skin of her vaginal area, and the second time his hand actually went inside of her vagina. She stated that they were in the bed in his room when the incident occurred, and that again, this occurred approximately 2 times as far as what she can recall.
Just so we're clear, is this juvenile, Ms. Stevens, is she the biological daughter of Justin Gleaton?
Yes, yes, ma'am. As far as what I was advised, they're biological.
And how old was the juvenile victim when this allegedly occurred?
She was 7 years old.
Were you able to interview any witnesses regarding what happened? Sergeant Baker, I think we lost him. Wait, there he is. Or
There he is.
okay. Sergeant, were you able to interview any potential witnesses regarding these allegations?
Yes, I.
And who were you able to interview?
I was able to interview the mother, of course, LaQuashina Stevens of Serenity Stevens. I was able to interview Justin Gleaton's biological sister, and as well as her daughter, Ashley Graham and Akila Graham. And I was also able to interview briefly Justin's cousin, Brittany Domingo.
Now, were any of these witnesses able to give you any information regarding the allegations involving Mr. Gleaton and the juvenile Stevens?
Yes, I was able to obtain information from both Ashley and Akila during the interview.
And what did Ashley and Akila indicate regarding Mr. Gleaton?
Ashley advised that when she was residing with Justin Gleaton at a home in Henry County.
To this line of testimony, I mean, the question is, and I don't believe that Sergeant Baker is being responsive to the question. The question was whether he was able to gain any information vis-a-vis these charges relating to Serenity from Akila or Ashley. I mean, I think that's the question that is asked, and I think Sergeant Baker is about to testify to some other incident unrelated to these particular charges. So right. his response is non-responsive to the question.
All right, ADA Freeman, what's your response?
Well, I believe that Ashley did make a statement to Sergeant Baker regarding the incident with Serenity, and that's what I was getting to.
Okay, it's going to be allowed then, Counselor. So your objection's overruled.
Thank you, Judge.
Yes, sir.
So Sergeant Baker, again, what statements did Ashley give you related to this incident that occurred with Serenity?
Ashley advised that LaQuashina had contacted her in reference to the incident that Serenity advised LaQuashina. She advised Ashley at the time the same thing that Serenity advised her about her father, Justin, touching her inappropriately.
Objection, once again, objection. I believe his testimony now is going to get into an incident unrelated to the incident dealing with Serenity. His testimony is about to evolve into another allegation.
Is that true, Sergeant
Well,
Baker?
Your Honor, I'll let you, Sergeant Baker, you can respond to the judge.
Yes, ma'am. It also involves another incident.
Okay, so your objection is sustained.
That's great, Your Honor. Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Do any of the other witnesses indicate anything regarding this particular incident with Serenity?
Yes.
Now, without going into any allegations of other incidents, what did you learn about the incident with Serenity?
I learned that the incident with Serenity was supported by Justin's sister and cousin, as Ashley did advise that she believed what Serenity stated due to Justin's character.
Who is, so you didn't really say, who is Mr. Gleaton's sister? Is that Ashley or Akila?
Sergeant Baker.
Yes, I'm sorry, Judge, you broke up very badly when you were speaking.
Okay, so I was asking you, who is Mr. Gleaton's sister? Is Ashley or Akila, are either one of those his sister, or is that someone else?
Ashley is the sister of Justin, and Akila would be his niece.
Okay, so Ashley's daughter.
Is Akila.
Okay, okay. Okay. I'm sorry for hijacking your questions.
Oh, no, Your Honor, that's, I was just making sure, again, because certainly trying not to get into some of the other things.
Anything outside the scope of this hearing?
Yes, Your Honor.
These charges.
Mhm.
Any other witnesses, or are you, let me know.
I believe that this happened in Clayton County.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe that's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, Cross?
Yes, thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Sergeant Baker. How are you? Can you hear me, Sergeant Baker?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I was just saying good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, sir?
Good, good, doing fine. And you and I met back on April the 7th, in 2020 at your office there in Clayton County, correct?
That's correct.
And we met on that date pursuant to an interview that we had scheduled with you and my client, Mr. Gleaton, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we brought Mr. Gleaton in to give you a statement and to have you interview him regarding these allegations, correct?
Yes, if I heard you correctly while you were breaking up, you did bring Justin Gleaton in reference to this case.
Okay. All right, let's back up a little bit. You said you've been with the Clayton County Police Department for 4 years. Is that my understanding?
Correct.
How long have you been with the sex crimes unit or a unit dealing with sexual offenses dealing with children?
I was in that unit for approximately 7 months.
7 months, okay. Are you still in that unit currently?
No, sir, I'm no longer in that unit.
Okay, and during that 7-month period that you were in this unit, how many cases did you have?
I'm sorry.
I said during the 7-month period that you were in this sex crimes unit, how many sexual offense cases did you handle that were assigned to you?
How many sexual offense cases was assigned to me at the time?
Well, how many did you handle? How many have you handled during that 7-month period?
I've handled, I would say within that 7-month period, I was assigned and handled at least at least 60 sex crime incidents.
And the 60 would be inclusive of this particular case with Mr. Gleaton?
I'm sorry, sir, can you repeat?
I said the 60 or some odd cases, would that be inclusive of this particular case with Mr. Gleaton?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Now, you stated that Aquashina Stevens, who is the mother of the alleged victim in this case, reported the incident to uniformed officers. What date did that report come in to uniformed officers?
I'm sorry, you said what date was the report made?
Yes, yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes. What date?
Yes, the mother came in and reported it to Clayton County Uniform Division on February 17th.
All right. Now, you are aware of the fact that on February the 14th of 2020, that Mr. Gleaton's mother, who I believe you've interviewed, Cynthia Gleaton, you've interviewed Ms. Gleaton, correct?
Correct.
You're aware of the fact that Ms. Cynthia Gleaton picked Serenity up for a weekend visit beginning February the 14th of 2020, correct?
Correct.
And you're aware of the fact that Serenity, the grandchild of Ms. Gleaton, remained in her custody and care from February the 14th through February the 17th, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the outcry or the report that LaQuashina, the mother, made to the uniformed officers on the 17th happened after Ms. Cynthia Gleaton returned the child Serenity back to the care and custody of her mother, correct?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little, but you said the report that was made
Came on the 17th, came after Miss Cynthia Gleaton, the grandmother, returned the child Serenity back to the custody and care of her mother, correct?
That's correct. The report was made after Serenity was returned back home.
Okay, and in your testimony, you said that Miss LaQuashina Stevens was bathing her daughter, and her daughter said that it hurt, speaking of her vaginal area, correct?
Speaking of her vaginal area, correct.
And you then said, Mom said, why did it hurt? Meaning LaQuashina asked her daughter why it hurt, correct?
I'm sorry, if I heard you correctly, you're asking if Mom then asked her, why does it hurt?
Yes.
Yes, Mom asked her, what's wrong?
Okay. And specifically, the child tells her mother that her father, my client, Mr. Gleaton, touched me in that area. That was her response to the question, correct?
Correct. She advised that her father touched her inappropriately.
Did she tell her mother that her father touched her more than once, or did she just reveal the one touching when she says, father touched me in that area?
I can't testify to that exactly. I'm unaware.
Okay. Now, what happens next? And prior to Ms. LaQuashina Stevens calling uniform, you do understand and you have the facts that LaQuashina Stevens called Ms. Cynthia Gleaton, the grandmother, to report what she had just been told by Serenity, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And during that telephone conversation that LaQuashina had with the grandmother, Ms. Cynthia Gleaton, she tells Ms. Gleaton that the incident happened on February the 14th, correct?
She advised that the incident happened. I don't believe she gave her an exact date because she did not have a long conversation with Ms. Cynthia Gleaton, as she advised that Cynthia Gleaton hung up on her and would not answer her calls any longer.
And you've interviewed Ms. Gleaton, correct?
Correct.
And Ms. Gleaton indicated to you during that interview that the phone call that she received from LaQuashina indicated to her that the incident happened on the 14th, correct?
She advised that the incident happened while she was in the custody of Ms. Cynthia Gleaton, which they assumed to be that date.
Okay. And we know that there could not have been anything that occurred on that date, the 14th, or any period of time during that weekend, because Mr. Justin Gleaton was incarcerated in the Clayton County Jail during that weekend, correct? Did you hear the question?
No, I did not. You
Okay, I'm
broke up
sorry.
very badly.
I said that you know, based upon your investigation, that no act could have occurred during the weekend of February the 14th, that Friday, into that Monday the 17th, because Mr. Gleaton was in the Clayton County Jail during that period of time, correct?
He was in the Clayton County Jail during the time the incident was reported.
Okay. And he had been in the jail in Clayton County since January the 18th of 2020, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I said he had been incarcerated in the Clayton County Jail since January the 18th, continuously through that weekend ending on the 17th of February, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And he actually did not get released until the 22nd of February, correct?
I'm sorry, you're still breaking up. Can you repeat?
I apologize. I said he did not get released until the 17th of February, excuse me, the 22nd of February, correct?
You still broke up on me, sir.
Okay. Do you know the date that Mr. Gleaton was released from the Clayton County Jail?
The date that Mr. Gleaton was released?
Yes, sir.
I don't have the exact date, but he was released around the ending of February.
Okay, that's fair enough. So based upon just simple math, Mr. Gleaton would have been in the Clayton County Jail at least 28 days before he could have had any contact with his daughter, correct?
You said before he was able to make contact with his daughter?
Well, I think I asked the question. It had been at least 28 days before he had had any contact with his daughter, correct?
28 days before he had contact with his daughter. Yes, the time he was in jail, he wouldn't have had contact with his daughter.
Okay, well, so the earliest that he could have had contact with her would have been January the 17th before he got arrested, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you ask LaQuishina whether she had any calendar or kept a calendar of the dates in which Mr. Gleaton, in which Miss Gleaton, the grandmother, would have had custody and care of her daughter?
You're asking, did I ask LaQuishina if she had a calendar?
Yes, whether she had a calendar and kept up with the dates in which Serenity would have been in the care and custody of her grandmother.
I'm sorry, sir, you're still breaking up very badly.
Okay. I'll slow down my questions. Maybe I'm talking too fast. During your interview with LaQuishina Stevens, did you at any time ask her to produce a calendar of the dates in which she authorized Cynthia Gleaton, the grandmother, to maintain custody and control of her daughter?
Oh, no, I did not.
Okay. So when you met with Miss Cynthia Gleaton, did you ask Miss Cynthia Gleaton to provide you with any sort of dates in which she had custody and control of her granddaughter, Serenity?
No, I did not.
Okay. So when you put in your warrant that the incident occurred on January the 1st, 2020, that is simply a guess, correct?
That is an estimation, correct.
You have no evidence that Mr. Gleaton ever had any contact or had contact with his daughter, Serenity, on January the 1st of 2020, correct?
On January 1st, do I have evidence to support that he had contact with her on that day?
Yes, sir, because that's what's in your warrant. You allege that the incident occurred on January the 1st. Yes, sir.
Correct. That's the date that's on the warrant.
And my question to you is, do you have any evidence you can give this court that Mr. Gleaton had any contact with Serenity on January the 1st of 2020?
No, I do not have an exact date for when the incident occurred. I just know about the times that Serenity was in contact with Justin Gleaton. And that date would suffice for around the time that he could have possibly had contact with her.
Okay.
But in reference to the warrant, I was not able to determine an exact date.
Now, based upon your interview with LaQuishina, do you have any evidence that Mr. Gleaton ever was allowed or authorized to have visitation with his daughter Serenity?
No, Miss LaQuishina advised that she was unaware that Mr. Gleaton was even around her daughter.
So there is no occasion where Mr. Gleaton requested from LaQuishina and LaQuishina granted a request for him to exercise any sort of visitation, whether it's overnight or otherwise, with his daughter, correct?
No, that was conducted between Miss LaQuishina and Cynthia, Justin's mother, who resides with him.
Okay. Now, this visit that occurred on February the 14th through the 17th of February, was this a pre-planned visit? Meaning, did LaQuishina and Miss Cynthia Gleaton speak prior to that to plan to allow Serenity to spend the night during that weekend?
According to them, yes, they did speak in reference to it, and then they made arrangements to where Miss Cynthia Gleaton came and picked up Serenity.
Okay. And to your knowledge, did LaQuishina notify Serenity that she was going over to her grandmother's for a weekend visit?
To my knowledge, I can't testify to that.
Okay. We don't know whether LaQuishina was made aware that she was going to spend the night over at her grandmother's during that weekend beginning February 14th, is what your testimony is.
I believe you meant Serenity, that Serenity was made aware?
Yes, I'm sorry, that Serenity was made aware. I apologize.
Yes, I'm unaware if she was made aware prior to being picked up by Miss Cynthia Gleaton.
Okay. In interviewing LaQuishina, did she indicate to you that she noticed any reservations or hesitation or any sort of angst on behalf of Serenity in wanting to go over and spend time with her grandmother?
No, she did not advise anything of that nature.
Okay. One second, Judge. LaQuishina is the primary caretaker of Serenity, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And they live in a home, correct? A single family home?
I'm sorry, so you broke up again at that time.
I said, do they live in a single family home or an apartment? LaQuishina
Are you
and
asking
Serenity.
if they reside in a home or apartment?
Yes, that is correct. In a single family house or an apartment?
I'm not 100% sure. I would have to look back at LaQuishina's address.
Okay, but it's clear that LaQuishina is the guardian and primary custodial adult over Serenity, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, they live together. No, there's no doubt about that, correct?
I'm sorry?
They live together, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I'll move on from that question. Do you know whether there are any adult males that live in the household with Serenity and LaQuishina?
If there are any adult males that reside with them?
That's correct.
Not to my knowledge. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, do you know if there are any juvenile males that live with LaQuishina and Serenity?
Yes, I believe she has siblings.
And are any of those siblings male siblings?
Yes.
Do you know the ages of those male siblings?
I'm sorry, sir, can you repeat?
Do you know the ages of those male siblings?
I cannot recall. I would have to go back and check in reference to that, but they're juveniles.
During your interview with Miss LaQuishina Stevens, did you ask her whether she was involved or dating anyone during the period of time from January 1st, 2020 up through February 17th of 2020?
If LaQuishina was dating anyone?
That is correct. Any male subject?
I believe LaQuishina did mention that she has a boyfriend.
Okay. Did you get his name or any information on him?
I'm sorry?
Did you obtain any information on the boyfriend, LaQuishina?
I'm sure I would have gotten a name, but again, I can't recall.
Okay. Now, did you inquire or ask LaQuishina whether she allowed any other adult other than Cynthia Gleaton to maintain some sort of temporary custody of Serenity from January the 1st of 2020 through February 17th of 2020?
No, I did not. We did not go into anyone else having care of Serenity.
Okay, so we don't know if Serenity had any other overnight visits with any other adult, whether they be male or female.
Not to my knowledge, no.
We know that since Mr. Gleaton was in jail from the January 18th date until the February 22nd date, that if this incident occurred, it had to have occurred prior to January 18th, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so during the 28-day period, let's just go from January the 18th through February the 17th. Do you know what LaQuishina's bathing routine was of her daughter Serenity?
No, I'm unaware of the routine. She just advised that she was giving Serenity a bath.
And you don't believe that this was the first time she gave Serenity a bath from the January the 18th date until February the 17th, do you?
I'm sorry, you broke up. I just caught February 17th.
You do not believe or suspect that between January the 18th and February the 22nd, that the only bath that LaQuishina gave her daughter Serenity was on February the 17th, do you?
I would not assume that that's the only time she got a bath, no.
So you would assume that she would have bathed her several times during that period of time, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But the only time that Serenity tells her mother that she is not comfortable in that in her vaginal area was on the February the 17th, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, did you testify that there was any sort of, well, let me ask this. Was Serenity taken to any medical hospital for any medical exams?
Hello?
Did you hear the question?
No, sir. Did I testify that? And then you went out.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did you testify, or even if you didn't, do you have knowledge of whether Serenity was ever taken for any medical exam as a result of this allegation?
Yes, she was the same day that LaQuishina reported it.
Okay, so on February the 17th, she was taken to Eggleston or some hospital?
Yes, to a hospital, yes.
Okay. Have you reviewed any medical records resulting from her being treated at the hospital?
Yes.
Okay. Have you spoken to the medical doctor that treated her?
I did not speak with the doctor, no.
Okay. Have you subpoenaed those medical records at this point?
I'm sorry, sir. Can you repeat?
I said, have you subpoenaed any of those medical records at this point?
You were advising, did I subpoena any medical records?
Yes, yes, sir.
Was that your question, sir?
Yes, sir. That was my question. Have you subpoenaed any of the medical records from that visit on February the 17th?
No, I was provided physical documentation of the doctor's visit and results from LaQuishina.
Okay. And what were the results?
The first hospital that Serenity had gone to. They advised that she had redness and swelling in her vaginal area, and they advised that she was that she had a urinary tract infection.
Do you know anything about UTIs or urinary tract infections in children?
Vaguely, just vaguely.
Okay. Do you know that they're pretty common in female children?
I know that UTIs are common in females, yes.
Okay. All right. Is there anything in the report that indicates how long Serenity had this UTI?
I'm sorry, sir, that one completely went out. I didn't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I said, is there anything in the medical report that you have reviewed that indicate or suggest how long Serenity had this UTI?
No, they wouldn't be able to provide how long the UTI.
Okay. All right. The forensic interview was conducted on March 5th of 2020, correct?
You said it was conducted when, sir?
On March 5th of 2020? The forensic interview?
You said, was it conducted on March 5th?
That is correct, sir.
Yes, yes, it was.
And how did Serenity get to the interview location?
She was transported by her mother.
Any other family members accompany them?
No, just Laq'Washina and Serenity.
And were you present at the interview?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Were you able to observe the interview as it was being conducted, or were you an active participant?
I was able to observe it while it was being conducted on a camera.
And who actually conducted that interview, sir?
The interview was conducted by forensic interviewer, Miss Wendy Mulder.
And I'm assuming this was video recorded?
You cut off after, I assume.
I'm sorry, I said I assumed that this was a video recorded interview?
I'm sorry, what kind of interview?
A video recorded? Was it recorded on video?
Yes, audio and video recorded.
Okay. And since you observed it, you heard Serenity say that she was touched inappropriately 2 times, correct? That was your testimony.
Yes, that she advised that it happened at least 2 times.
Okay. Now, based upon your investigation, those 2 times that she alleges inappropriate touching, did they occur on the same date or did they occur on separate dates?
From what Serenity told the forensic interview, there were separate times, separate incidents, so separate dates.
Okay. Was she able to narrow down the dates at all?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Was she able to narrow down the dates?
Was Serenity able to narrow down dates?
That is correct.
No, she was not. She was able to narrow down dates. She just advised that it would happen when she was her grandmother.
Okay. Did the interviewer ask Serenity why she did not tell her grandmother or her mother about these incidents when they first occurred?
No, the interviewer did not ask Serenity why she didn't tell her mother when it occurred at the time that it occurred.
Did the interviewer ask Serenity if she knew that the alleged touchings were wrong?
That's question specifically. I don't believe she asked her that specifically, no.
Did she ask her that question in any other form that would elicit the type of response to say that it was wrong?
I would say that it was mentioned because the word inappropriately was used, but I don't believe that she was questioned directly if she knew it was wrong. Just
okay. And
one thing that Wendy disclosed was that advising Serenity that anytime bad, she spoke to her in reference to good touch and bad touch, and advised her anytime a bad touch occurs, then she's right to tell an adult.
And so did Serenity indicate to the interviewer that these were bad touching?
Did she disclose to the interview what about bad touching, sir?
Well, once the interviewer explained the difference between good touching and bad touching to Serenity, did Serenity then say that these particular touchings that she is alleging were bad touching?
Yes, she advised that before any discussion about good touch or bad touch. She advised that she was touched inappropriately.
Did the interviewer ask Serenity if anyone had told her not to tell about these touchings?
I cannot recall if she asked that question specifically. I know that's something that I would normally have her ask. I cannot recall. I cannot say that I recall that she did specifically ask that question though.
Okay. Did the interviewer ask Serenity whether she was afraid of her father, Mr. Justin Gleaton?
I don't believe she was asked that.
Did the interviewer ask Serenity whether she was threatened in any way by her father, Justin Gleaton, after these alleged inappropriate touches?
I cannot recall. I recall every question that was asked, so I would have to review that footage that was added to the case file.
Fair enough. Once again, if these incidents occurred, they had to have occurred prior to January the 18th of 2020. Did LaQuishina Stevens detect any sort of change in Serenity's demeanor, in her character, or any change whatsoever between January the 18th and prior to the outcry on February the 17th?
I didn't ask her that specifically, but to my knowledge, just the day that the incident was reported.
Okay. So you have no information to give this court whether Serenity's personality changed, correct?
No, I do not. I can't testify to that.
Or whether her demeanor changed during this period of time, correct?
I'm sorry, sir?
Or whether her demeanor changed at all?
You still did not come through, sir.
I'm saying you have no evidence that LaQuishina noticed any change in Serenity's demeanor during this period of time, correct?
No, I don't.
Okay. You have no evidence to give this court whether Serenity's sleeping patterns significantly changed during this period of time, correct?
No, I don't.
Okay. Now, Serenity was in fact in school during this period of time, correct?
I'm not certain if she was. I would assume that she was, but we didn't speak in reference to school.
Okay. So you have no information that her grades or anything like that changed significantly during this period of time, correct?
No.
Okay. Do you have any physical evidence that corroborates Serenity's allegations in regards to these two inappropriate touches?
I'm sorry, you cut off. Did I have any
physical evidence that would corroborate Serenity's allegations regarding these two touches?
You came in at Serenity. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. I said, do you have any physical evidence that would corroborate Serenity's allegations regarding these two inappropriate touches?
No physical. I don't have any physical evidence.
Now, when you met with Mr. Gleaton and myself on April the 7th, Mr. Gleaton denied the allegations, correct?
He did.
Okay. And prior to meeting with Mr. Gleaton, you had already met with LaQuishina and Serenity, correct?
Correct.
And you had spoken with Ashley, Akila, and a young lady by the name of Domingo Brittany, correct?
Correct.
And so, based upon your law enforcement experience, did you think you had enough or sufficient evidence prior to Mr. Gleaton walking into your office to be interviewed to seek an arrest warrant for him?
I'm sorry, repeat that last part.
I said, based upon your law enforcement experience, do you believe that you had enough evidence or sufficient evidence to seek a warrant prior to Mr. Gleaton walking into your office on April 7th, 2020?
I did not determine that at the time because part of my investigation is to contact the suspect and interview them so I can get their side of the story prior to making any decision.
Okay, fair enough. When Mr. Gleaton walked out of your office, because you didn't obtain the warrant until April the 10th, correct?
I'm sorry.
I said you did not obtain the warrant for Mr. Gleaton's arrest until April the 10th, correct?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I said you did not obtain the warrant for Mr. Gleaton's arrest until April the 10th, correct?
If I can recall correctly, yes.
Okay, so that would have been 3 days after he met with you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. When he walked out of your office on April the 7th, you did not believe that he was a flight risk, did you?
I'm sorry?
I said, when he walked out of your office on April the 7th, you did not believe that he posed a flight risk, did you?
That's not something that I can say that I determined at that time, no.
Okay. And on that same date, when he walked out of your office, you didn't think that he posed any significant risk of intimidating any witnesses, did you?
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point. Mr. Hubbard is now getting into bond factors, and
I will just ask one other question, Judge. Isn't it true that Mr. Gleaton surrendered himself to the Clayton County Jail on April 16th, correct?
I'm not certain of that. I wasn't made aware that he surrendered himself in any way.
Okay. Do you have your file in front of you?
In reference to this case?
Yes, surrender. Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, I did, honestly, but my computer just cut out on me.
Okay. I don't think I have any further questions, Judge.
All right. ADA Freeman, do you have any follow-up?
no, Your Honor. I don't have any additional questions.
Are there any other witnesses?
No, the state rests.
All right. Any witnesses, Attorney Hubbard?
No witnesses, Judge, and we're just going to submit it on the evidence. I don't think any argument is necessary.
All right.
Now, Your Honor, I will say this case is on the bond calendar Friday. I sent Mr. Hubbard a message on the chat to see if he wanted to keep it on Friday. I don't know, so I'm not sure of his posture right now, what he wants to do about Friday.
Yes, unless you would like to go forward with the bond hearing right now.
That's up to Your Honor.
I'm gonna tell you, I've got some problems with this case. I've got some very serious problems with this case. I mean, on the one hand, I've got these very serious charges that Mr. Gleaton is facing, which make me pause because of the nature of the charges. But on the other hand, I have this man. Now, counselor, are you stating in your place that he was in jail between January 18th and February 27th? You have documentation.
22nd, Judge.
22nd? You have documentation of that?
Judge, I have the, yes, he was there on a theft by taking warrant. I have the warrant number if the court wants it and can pull it up.
And so the question is, I mean, I'm going to go into some things that make me pause. So the medical exam was on February 17th. Is that correct, Detective Baker?
Yes, ma'am. She was taken to the hospital on February 17th.
Well, he was in jail from January the 18th.
Correct.
She was with her grandmother from February 14th to February 17th, correct?
That's one of the dates that Serenity did visit grandmother. She visited grandmother prior to that as well.
And it was the father there at any of the prior visits?
I'm sorry, ma'am, you cut out on me.
Was Mr. Gleaton at the home at the visit prior to the weekend of February the 14th? Do you know?
Yes, he was. He did testify during the interview that he was there present with Serenity during those visits.
This is one that I'm just not sure what or if the state has proven this case. I need more. And I let me tell you what, I hesitate to let Mr. Gleaton go, again, because of the seriousness of these charges. But on the other hand, because of the seriousness of the charges, I hesitate to keep him locked up.
Judge, I can tell you that if the court wanted me to give you some Ayala factors, I could do that. He's 31 years old. He's a native of Georgia, been here all his life. Graduated from high school in 2006, Union Grove High School. Earned a business certificate from Earl C. Clements Job Corps. Has been employed at Elite Realty and Uber Eats. It's my understanding he has no prior felony convictions. He was once again in the Clayton County Jail on a theft. I believe it's a theft by taking warrant. That warrant was, I believe, bound over. I did not represent him during that period of time, but once again, that's what caused him to be incarcerated from January the 18th, 2020 through February the 22nd of 2020.
I'm going to tell you something else. The fact that the forensic interview was conducted on February the 17th, that's when the medical exam happened, I believe, or the forensic interview. And the fact that it was 2 months later after speaking to 3 other persons that the warrants were taken out. I'm quite concerned about this. I'm quite concerned about this case. This is one where on the face of this case, you're just appalled by what he's being charged with, by what the child is accusing him of. That's on the face. But when you go into the case and you listen to the details of the case, I'm concerned with everything that may not be there to substantiate these charges. I definitely, so what I'm going to, and I don't do the bond hearings. I'm not going to do the bond hearing, Attorney Hubbard, this Friday. So I'm going to do the bond hearings today or soon, because the only thing I can think of doing is making sure your client is out on a bond, instead of me dismissing these charges summarily, to make sure that he's out on a bond. That's the only way that I can balance, and that this investigation needs to be tighter than this. There's some missing holes in this. There's some things that need to be proven in this case before you can keep this man and charge him with these 2 types of crimes.
Your Honor, one thing I will say, going on the Ayala factors about the likelihood to reoffend, that based on Sergeant Baker's interview with Ashley and Akila, is that we see what she says that I'm sorry. Oh, Akila had indicated that on one particular day when her uncle, they were watching TV in the living room at the apartment when they resided with him at the time, she stated that Justin told her to move closer to him. And then when she did, that Justin started to touch her and move his fingers all the way up her legs and told her not to tell anyone. Ashley indicated that Akila told her what happened, and then she and her brother, meaning Mr. Gleaton, got into a physical altercation. And Ashley had indicated that she knows Justin touched his daughter, Serenity, because he did the same thing to their biological cousin, Brittany Domingo, when they were younger. And at that time, Brittany was interviewed. She disclosed that when she and Justin were juveniles, they both used to visit their grandmother in Atlanta. She said during their visit, Justin would attempt to touch her and have sex with her, but she would always fight him off. She said Justin was older than she is, and that he used to always ask her to have sex with her, but she would tell him no. So those are the incidents that certainly the state is concerned with. And we have been in contact with LaQuashina. And she even indicated that the defendant certainly may need some kind of mental or psychiatric eval because of of what has been going on, what the allegations are.
And I'll say something to you. The statements of the other family members, that's what makes this case not questionable, but that's what makes me pause, because I read that.
And Judge, if I could just have a brief comment on both of those incidents, or alleged incidents. The incident dealing with his sister and his sister's child, his niece. The state is correct that there was a fight at an apartment that Mr. Justin Gleaton was the tenant, that he was the leaseholder. His sister and several members of his sister's family, including a boyfriend and several other children, were living with Mr. Gleaton for a period of time. When the alleged allegation came up, there was a physical altercation that occurred on the same day. And and this was in a different county several years ago, but law enforcement was called to the scene on the exact day, and no mention by his sister to law enforcement that the fight had started over some alleged allegation of a touching. No outcry. The police are at the scene that very day as a result of a fight, and there's no outcry, no allegations made to police about allegedly some touching. So I have cause for concern, and I would hope that the court would have cause for concern that law enforcement are called out and not a mention to police as to any sort of inappropriate touching. As far as Ms. Domingo Brittany is concerned, she makes an allegation after she speaks with Justin's sister. She then makes the allegation, and Sergeant Baker interviewed her and said this allegedly occurred when they were juveniles. The state is correct that my client is older, but only 3 years older. There's a 3-year difference in age. And she, according to what my information is, could never tell Sergeant Baker specifically how old she was when this allegedly happened. And there was no outcry to family members, to her grandmother, or anyone else. No one else was told of this. The first time she is now saying something happened was once Sergeant Baker talks to her after she speaks to Mr. Gleaton's sister, who alleges quite conveniently that the same thing happened to her. So both of those incidents are questionable.
I've been doing this 7 years, right? I've never, ever, I want you to understand me, I've never had a case with these type of charges that I paused on. Never. I'm pausing on this charge. I'm pausing on this case. I have concerns. I have concerns because arguably, when the child went to have the exam, this was when Mr. Gleaton was in jail. And so I don't know how long redness was, I just don't know the medical diagnosis or the medical conclusions, but to have a urinary tract infection, redness and swelling in her vaginal area. This was on February the 17th. At that point, he'd been in jail for a month. Is anyone, what are we doing here in terms of an investigation? And the charges are so heinous that when you hear this, you're just like appalled by the charges. And when you dig into the evidence supporting the charges, I have concerns. So on the one hand, I have these two horrible charges that if there's any validity or any truth in them, your client needs to face a serious legal process. On the other hand, if they're not true, then you've got this man. The only thing I can do with this is make sure that the bond speaks to this court's hesitancy in finding probable cause. And that way he can be out, he can contribute to his defense. So I'm looking at a bond. I'm looking at a reasonable bond. I'm looking at a bond that speaks to the gaps in this case. Because it almost seems to me that the decision to charge him wasn't made until they had some corroboration or some prior alleged incidents between these three other females, that based on your representation, Attorney Hubbard, no one ever gave an outcry? No one ever had an investigation of these allegations? I mean, is anyone looking at this the same way that I'm looking at this? There's some problems here. I've never seen a case of this nature that made me pause. Never. And I'm pausing. So we need to talk about bond. That's what we need to talk about, bond. Because to find probable cause only means that it goes to the next stage. To have your client sitting in jail if there's a possibility that he didn't commit these crimes, that's a travesty.
Judge, respectfully, I'd ask this court to entertain a $5,000 bond per.
That's not happening. That is not happening. That is not happening, Counselor. That's not happening. It's not gonna be a $5,000 bond, but it's gonna be reasonable. It's not gonna be 5,000.
And Judge, the only thing I'm showing regarding Mr. Gleaton's history is a 2011 obstruction and criminal trespass and a 2016 suspended license.
Yeah. So his bond hearing is Friday. I'm not doing the bond hearing on Friday. Are there any witnesses that the state would need to bring for the bond hearing? Or with?
Let me, if I could have 1 second, let me check with Ms. Brookins to see what, if they've spoken with LaQuashina about a bond.
Attorney Hubbard, you need to let me know where he's gonna stay, who he's gonna be living with, that he will not have contact with his sisters or their daughters. I mean, there's some things that need to happen if the
Judge,
child.
I've cut court off. I've absolutely counseled with my client about any contact. He understands that he's to have absolutely no contact with anyone associated with this case, whether it be Serenity, LaQuashina, his sister, her daughter, or Brittany. And he's had no contact with these individuals.
Well, he's in jail.
And Ms. Brooks is going to try to call LaQuashina really quick. We've been in contact with her, and her main concern has been just the protection of her daughter. She says her daughter isn't sleeping well now, and so Ms. Brooks is going to try to call her now just to see if she would certainly want to be heard and issue a bond. So I should have something in the next couple of minutes.
This one's making me pause. I don't pause a lot, not on these. First time pausing, it's making me pause. All right? It's making me pause. All right. Maybe that's enough for today. It's 3 o'clock. I need to put some fresh eyes on this. I'm going to make a decision about bond. Probably, if we need to have a bond hearing, I would like to conduct the bond hearing because I feel like I'm the most aware of everything involved in this matter. I think we should set a bond hearing down. I think that the victim's family has an opportunity to speak, to be heard. If there are any witnesses that you want to bring, Attorney Hubbard, you bring your witnesses. But I don't know about this one.
So what I'm hearing Your Honor say is that the bond hearing scheduled for this Friday is going to be rescheduled, and the court will just let me know if date certain.
No. I'm saying to you that I'm going to figure out when I can handle the bond hearing. If I take part of the bond hearing on Friday, just for the client, he doesn't need to stay in jail any longer if this is the evidence against him. I mean, on the one hand, I could just say I find no probable cause. I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm not going to do that. So the way that I can balance the decision of these two charges with the evidence that I've heard, with the testimony I've heard, the only way I can balance it is to make sure that he has a reasonable bond that speaks to his ability to get out.
And LaQuashina has indicated that she might want to address the court. She is going to think about it, but she has indicated to Ms. Brookins that she might want to address the court.
Mm-hmm. And Cynthia Gleaton is his mother?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Is she gonna be available?
I believe she is, Judge. She is watching this on YouTube. I'm pretty sure she would be available Friday. She is actually retired from working at the Superior Court of Fulton County up under Judge Michael Johnson. So
I've got concerns.
I'm pretty sure she'd be available. If the court would allow me, could I call her right now just to make sure she'd be available Friday? I believe she will.
Sure. I'm getting a question from my JA. Is I do the Zoom hearing on Friday and take this one first, and then Judge West can take the rest of the calendar. Let's do it like that. What time is the bond hearing on Friday? What time does it start?
8 o'clock.
I received notice for 8 o'clock.
All right, I'll be here at 8 o'clock on Friday. That's what.
We'll see the court then.
All right, thank you.
Now, I've just got one question in terms of procedure and how the mechanics of this work. If Miss Cynthia Gleaton wants to testify, can she do that from YouTube, from watching it, or she?
No. We would bring her right into the Zoom meeting.
The Zoom meeting, okay.
We bring her into the Zoom meeting, as well as the mom, Ms. Stevens, will be brought into the Zoom meeting on Friday at 8. Any other witnesses?
Once the link is sent to me, I can then forward the link to Ms. Gleaton.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Judge. Ms. Freeman, Sergeant Baker, everyone be safe. Have a great afternoon. Mr. Gleaton, I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Judge.
Can I be excused at this time, Judge?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, may Sergeant Baker be excused?
Yes.
All right.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to end the meeting for everyone.
Okay.